Welcome. This video is going to focus on using variables, doing math, and drawing the Squiral. So let's start with variables. Variables are essentially storage boxes, a place where we can store one value. There are some built-in variables like a character's position, the X value. So under the Motion tab, if I go look down here, I can see there's X position and a check mark. And if I click the check mark, it shows me Sprite 1's X position is negative 153. If I tell him to go kind of back to his original position that I've got set up here, his X position is negative 150. X position is basically a storage box. It can store a number, and that number happens to control where this character is on the screen. If I bring X position in here and double click it, I see it gives me the number negative 150. So I can ask for the current value of the X position using this oval shaped block. And I can also view it in here. Right? The checkbox is what turns on the view inside the screen here. This doesn't really do anything, it just shows us the current value of the variable and allows us to watch what happens to it easily. To work with variables, we have two big blocks. I can change X by 10, and I can set X to 0. Both of those are parameters that I can change. So here's change X by 10, set X to 10. The difference is, well, pretty much what they sound like. Change X by 10 is going to take the existing value and add 10 to it. So right now, our X value is negative 150. Click that, I get negative 140. Again, negative 130, oops, did it twice, negative 120, negative 110. Every time I click this, it changes X by positive 10. If I want to go backwards, I can make that be negative 10. All right, back to negative 120. I want to go further, I can make that be 20. And jump by 20 at a time. As opposed to set X to 10, which is not going to care at all where we are right now. It's just going to jump to positive 10. That location is 10 over on the coordinate system that we're using. Doesn't matter where I am, my X coordinate just gets set to 10. Now, sometimes we'll hard code values in to those locations, but we can also use math. Under the operator section, we've got kind of a bunch of ways of building up bigger expressions, and we're really going to focus on the first four for now. We'll learn about some of the other ones later. So those oval-shaped holes where I can type in a number can also take a math expression. So there's no reason why I can't say I want to add 50 plus 20. And if I want to see what that's going to be, I can double-click on the green, and it shows me 70. That little kind of thought balloon that I'm getting for 70 is showing me what it evaluates to. And that's also the value that's going to get passed to whatever this is inside. So this says set X to whatever I get by doing 50 plus 20. So when the computer tries to execute this, first it's going to do the 50 plus 20, and then it's going to take the answer, which we know is 70, and set X to that. Bingo. Now if I put the same thing in the change X by 70, I'm at negative 77 now. Now I'm at negative 7. Now I'm at positive 63. And we can build up arbitrarily complex expressions. So I could do 50 plus 20 is 70, and then multiply that by 2, and I get 140. Kind of think of each of these green blocks as a set of parentheses. So I'm going to do 50 plus 20, whatever I get from that set of parentheses, I'm going to multiply that by 2. And so there's my 140. And then I'm going to subtract from whatever I got, I'm going to subtract 10. And I got 130. So we can build up expressions doing math and pass those into anything that expects a number. Most programming languages don't actually have a change variable by amount instruction. All they have is set X to. And if we want to simulate something like change x by 10, just increase the x position by 10, in most programming languages, the way you have to write that is set x to its current value plus 10. So I could do that in BYOB by saying plus the current x position and 10. Add those two up. So my current x position is negative 79. I want to add 10 to that, and I get negative 69. And that's going to be my new value. So if I run this the first time, we go to 69. If I run this again, well, now the x position knows we're at negative 69. The whole point of a variable is it can change. It knows what value we've got stored there. And we'll add 10 and we'll get 59, and so that's going to be the new x position. All right, every time we just change the x value by 10. Same thing as this is doing. Now, most of the time we'll probably use change x by 10 if that's what we need to do, because it's a little more clear than this version. But like I said, for many programming languages, if you want to change a variable, you have to say x gets set to what x currently is plus 10. You have to do it this way. Now, I want to kind of take some of these ideas and use them to build up a more complicated version of some of the drawing stuff we were doing last time. So right over here, right now, I've got my draw a square. What I'd like to be able to do is easily control how big that square is. And to do it without kind of just fiddling with this number directly. What I'd like to do is have a variable that stores how big I'm going to make that square. And so to do that, I've got to introduce my own variable. We can do that under the Variables tab. I can say make a variable. And I'm going to call this size. For now, we'll pretty much always just do it for all sprites and hit OK. And you can see over here we got this new variable, and it shows me size. It's going to start at 0. I don't really like that, so I'm going to set the size to be, let's do 80. And I can double click that now and just change it to 80, or I could make that be part of my script. So what I want to say is, instead of moving 50 steps, I want to move whatever size is currently set to be. So if size is 80 right now, I want to move 80. If I change size to 20, I want to make a real small square. So the way I do that is, instead of having 50 there, kind of like I can put x position in to that hole, I'm going to put size, this new variable I created, in on top of where I had the number of steps to move. So move size steps. When it sees that, it's going to go look at, oh, what number is there? 20. Okay, that's how far I have to move. So let's clear things out. If the size is 20, we get a nice small square. If I crank the size up and set that value, so we've got that stored in size, now we've got a much bigger one. Now, just like I can change x by 10 or set x to be 10, we can change this variable that I've made. I can change size by, let's change it by 10. So size is currently, let's go back to 20. So size is 20. We're going to change size by 10. And now it's 30, 40, 50, 60, etc. So let's try, and you can see I've got the start of something kind of neat here. I've got a small square and then a bigger square. I want to build up something that's going to draw a smaller square, a bigger, 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 kind of concentric squares almost. So let's clear off the screen. I've got a recipe that's going to use my variable called size to figure out how big to draw my square. And I'm going to pull the weight out here. And then I want to repeat that. So I want to do this kind of multiple times. Let's draw, I don't know, say 5 of them. So we'll put a repeat. We want to draw 5 squares. So I'm going to repeat this whole thing. I probably don't need to repeat the pen down part. I could just do that one time. Now, if I don't do anything else, so size is 20, I'm going to draw 5 times and come in. I'm going to draw a square using 20 as the size. Wait a second. Draw another square the same size. And you can see that's what he's doing. I'm going to go ahead and tell him to stop. Not exactly what I had in mind. Right? What I really want to do is do a size 20, and then a size 30, and a 40. So after he finishes drawing this first one, I'm going to tell him to, let's not set the size, let's tell him to change the size. And then we'll wait a second just so we can kind of watch it happen. So 5 times we'll come in, draw a square at the current size, and then increase the current size by 10. So small one, bigger, 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 bigger. And if I reset the size and kind of clear the screen, so this time if you're watching the size variable, we can see that every time we hit that change size by 10, it increases by 10, and that causes the next square that we draw to be a little bit larger. Well, we could do this as many times as we want. Oh, didn't mean to do that. So I could have him do the whole process 10 times, and maybe even take the weight out. There we go. I didn't reset the original size back to 20. Let's do that. Clear it out. So we'll start from 20. Right now it says 200 for the size, but the first thing we'll do is crank that down to 20. And we'll put the pen down, and we're going to draw 10 squares. Each one's going to be at the current size. Well, what the heck does size mean? It starts at 20, and then becomes 30, 40, 50, 60. And we end up with something like that. So, on to the Squiral. The last thing we're going to do is make a square spiral. So I want him to kind of work his way out. Essentially what I need to happen, kind of without worrying about the repeat at first. Oops, didn't mean that. Let's duplicate this, and I'm going to rip size out for a second, clear off the screen. So I need him to like move 10 steps, turn 90 degrees, move a little bit further. So I'll do it in like increments of 5, and then turn 90, and then move 20, and turn 90, move 25. So if I kind of do something like this, oops, and we clear things out, and I better duplicate that, get a pen down. You can see I've kind of started doing a little spiral shape. If I take this a little bit further, 30, and then 35. So we're basically kind of making squares, but instead of keeping the same side length every time, we're going a little bit further each time, and we get in this kind of spiral shape. So I want to do that, but I don't want to have to keep doing the copy and paste because I want to like fill the screen with this thing. So what we're going to do is use this strategy. I need to know kind of how far I'm going to go. So let's have a size variable. Right? We've already got something called size, don't need to make a new one. So we'll start from 20. And then we're going to, except I started from 10 there, so let's start it at 10. And then I know what I'm going to do is kind of repeat this chunk over and over and over, except I don't always want to move 10 steps. I want to move whatever the current size is. And I want to repeat this over and over and over. So let's leave that alone. Let's put in a repeat. And how many times do I want to do it? I don't know. Let's do it a whole bunch. Let's do it 60 times. Now, right now, I don't have anything in here that's ever going to change the size. So we're not going to get that kind of expanding thing that I wanted. What I really want is every time he moves to get 5 more. So we'll move, turn 90 degrees, duplicate that. And then after we turn, I'm going to increase the size. So change the size. I'm going to increase it by 5 so that when we come back through, now the size will be 15, 20, 30, or 25, 30. So let's go ahead and run this. Oh, looks like 60 might be a little bit crazy. Let's crank that down and make sure I put the pen down this time. There's a squiral, a square-shaped spiral. And this is all the code that takes to draw that shape. The last thing I want to do is talk about making a generic polygon drawer. So last time we looked at making different kinds of polygons. What I'd like to do this time is make something that can draw any size shape. So what I'm going to do, we don't really need the X position showing anymore, so I'm going to turn that off. I am going to use size, so let's keep that around. And I'm also going to make a variable for the number of sides. Number sides. Let's go ahead and put off in there. Number of sides. And number of sides, this is going to control how many sides we draw. So let's start with 4. So we're going to have to make some room here. So these two things are going to control how big. Oops. Box and attach this to my cleanup script. So these two things are going to control how big a shape we make, the size of each side, and how many sides it has. 4 currently. We know basically what drawing a polygon looks like. It looks kind of like this: repeat, move a distance, turn a distance. So the only question is, well, how many times do we have to repeat it? Well, it's not always going to be 4. That would work for a square, but it doesn't work for other shapes. What really should determine how many times I have to draw a side is the number of sides that we're using. So let's use that variable. Instead of having 4, that's just plain number, we're going to say repeat however many sides there are. If there's 5 sides, do it 5 times. How far are we going to move? Well, we're going to move whatever size tells me to. So if the size is 10, move 10 steps. If we want to draw a bigger one, we can do size of 50. And then I've got turn. Well, I don't always turn 90 degrees, right? I'm going to have to come up with a way to express this in terms of my variables. Now, the only thing that the turn depends on is the number of sides. Remember what we said is the exterior angles of a polygon always add to 360. So if I divide that by however many sides there are, right, there's 4 sides, I have to turn 90 degrees. If I want to draw a pentagon, 5 sides, I have to turn 72 degrees. Well, instead of having a number in there, I'm going to use the number of sides. Right, so right now if I click this, I get 90 degrees because the number of sides is 4. If I say, let's make the number of sides be 5, now it knows that that should be 72. So here I've got an expression for exactly how many degrees I should have to turn. And instead of having the hard-coded 90, I can use this. All right, so let's go ahead and I'll actually break this off. So I've got size 50, number of sides of 5. Let's go ahead and run our thing. Oh, forgot the pen down again. Try this one more time. There's our 5-sided figure. Let's try changing 8 sides. Well, let's draw an octagon. And we'll clear off the screen. I'm going to do this to make sure I get my variable set up. So the size is going to be 50. The number of sides is 8. And now we're going to draw the shape. We've got one nice chunk of code that as long as I pick the right number of sides and the right size that I want, so we could, let's do a smaller one. I'm going to get exactly the shape I want, which is pretty darn cool.